and welcome to all the participants to the today's session of recent judgments in GST. As we all know that judgments in GST are coming thick and fast. And what is happening is that there's a WhatsApp university that as soon as a judgment comes, it is shared all across the social media, and the headlines sometimes are so catchy so that it can spread fast, that it does not convey the right sense or the right meaning of the judgment. So today's session would be effectively covering the judgment which have been reported on Taxmann in the month of January. We would be covering the volume 158, wherein about 300 judgments of various high courts, high courts and Supreme Court has been delivered, and out of those, about 65 judgments have been selected by me. And in my opinion, if we are able to comprehend and prepare a compilation of these judgments on a monthly basis, these would be providing us a very useful resource for not only for the professionals but also for the officials also while drafting the replies or the orders as the case may be. So starting with today's session and the presentation.
कस्टम वाली इमेज भी काफी बार रिपीट होती है, आपको ये वाली इमेज दिखेगी, ये
I have categorized the judgments according to the sections to which it pertains. So starting with section 3, this is the Allahabad High Court judgment wherein Honorable Allahabad High Court held that notification number 14/2017, wherein central government notified the officers of DGSTI as the officers under section 3 of CGST Act as a valid notification, and it is not ultra vires to the powers provided to the government under the CGST Act.
Already वो highlighted है वहाँ पे.
Ma'am, the mic of the audience is not on mute.
और इतने लोग बैठे हैं, ट्रैफिक में 6 लोग हो गए अब तो.
Renu ma'am? Renu ma'am, are you there? So the first is the Allahabad High Court judgment wherein the authority of the DGSTI was challenged that they are not proper officers or officers under GST, and central government has incorrectly notified them as officers, and that notification was upheld. In the similar case, it was also upheld by Honorable Allahabad High Court that since they are officers notified under Section 3 of CGST Act, the board has very aptly and under the legal provisions of Section 5 have given them the power, and those powers which have been vested by the board under Section 5 and by issue of circular, they can very validly issue the summon under Section 70, and a summon issued by them under Section 70 is a valid exercise of their powers. Next, coming to another judgment by Honorable Delhi High Court under Section 5, wherein multiple notices were issued to multiple recipients for a common, in case of a common supplier. And the question was that can a single authority judge all those notices? So relying upon para 7.1 of circular number 9th February 2018, which was duly amended by on 12th of March 2022, it was held that out of the multiple notices which have been issued by for a single case for multiple parties, the assessment would be carried on by the unit wherein the largest demand of an assessee is there. So supposedly there are 10 assessees to whom notices have been issued in the single case of a supplier, and out of those 10 assessees, the largest demand is pertaining to say X assessee. So all those 10 cases would be decided by the officer of that X assessee, and all the orders in those 10 cases would be passed by the officer of Mr. X. So in that case, out of those 9 assessees, one of the assessee challenged that how can the jurisdiction be given to a single person. So therein Honorable Delhi High Court upheld the validity of the circular 9th February 2018 and referred to para 7.1 and upheld also the allocation of the case to a single authority. Now coming to section 6, this is a judgment by Honorable Jharkhand High Court, and interestingly, for a single SSC, first there was a search operation under Section 67 by the state authorities. Then, after some time, there was a search operation on the same SSC by the CGST anti-evasion wing. And then on the same SSC, there was another search operation under Section 67 by DGGSTI. Now the question was that who will have the right over the proceedings to be conducted against that SSC? Whether all the three agencies would conduct the proceedings simultaneously, because the issue in all these three searches was common. So there was a argument by DGGSTI that since we are a national agency and we have all the data and we have busted a fake invoice gang in Noida, so therefore the further proceedings would lie with us. But Jharkhand, Honorable Jharkhand High Court said that all those three proceedings are at initial stage, and since the first search was conducted by state authorities, so therefore all the proceedings would transfer to the state authorities, and state authorities are well competent, because at some point of time during the course of arguments, the competency of DGGST was held to be on a higher pedigree than the state officials. So Honorable Jharkhand High Court said that they are well competent to carry out the proceedings against the assessee. Now coming to the judgments which have been reported in the last one under Section 9. The first is by Madras High Court, wherein they had said that the affiliation fees which is being charged, by the universities would not be exempt from exempt from the levy of tax under under notification 12/2017, because they are not pertaining to admission or conduct of examination. This issue of affiliation fees being charged is a common issue across the country, and this judgment by Honorable Madras High Court favors the revenue and says that the affiliation fees which is being charged for grant or renewal of affiliation would be chargeable under the GST Act. Now, on another contentious issue regarding the taxability of voucher, Honorable Madras High Court, again in case of Kalyan Jewellers India Limited, held that per se vouchers are neither goods nor services, and therefore mere issuance of voucher would not be liable for GST. The taxability would be decided according to the time of supply which has been provided under Section 12 or Section 13 of CGST Act. That is, if at the time of issuance of voucher, the service or the goods which are being purchased are identified, then they would be the taxability would be at the time of issuance. But if they are not, then the taxability will defer to a later point. So again, this judgment by Honorable Madras High Court referred to another judgment by Karnataka High Court in case of premier sales, wherein similar matter was decided. Now, a judgment by Patna High Court in case of Mahavir Shramik and Nirman Samiti, wherein the question was that whether the services being provided for solid waste management to municipality would be leviable to GST or not. The department contended that it is a works contract, and therefore, since it is a works contract and involves goods, therefore it is not exempted from levy of GST. But Honorable Patna High Court said that this is a pure service being provided by the service provider to the municipality, and there is no goods involved in it. It is not a works contract service. Therefore, since it is a pure service and covered by Article 243W of the Constitution, therefore it is exempt from levy of GST. Now, another case by Madras High Court in case of Naga Limited. This again touches a very important aspect. As we all know that the transportation services relating to agriculture produce are exempt from levy of GST. Now, in this case, the assessee imported, say, wheat from outside the country. Now, the question was that whether the transportation services relating to the agriculture produce, the services of loading, unloading, package, storage, or warehousing would be exempted from levy of GST or not. There was an advance ruling in this case, and in that advance ruling, the authority has said that since the assessee is an importer, He himself is not an agriculturist. Therefore, the services of loading, unloading, packing, storage of warehousing would not be exempt. Honorable Madras High Court said that this is an incorrect ruling because what the notification says, it says agriculture produce. And if the goods being imported into the country are agriculture produce, even though the person is not an agriculturist, still it would be entitled for exemption and no GST would be levied on the services being provided in relation to those agriculture produce relating to loading, unloading, package, storage of warehousing to the importer of those goods. Now, coming to the next decision on Section 16 of the GST Act, another important issue, Section 16, subsection 4, a decision by Madras High Court, wherein the assessee had claimed the credit, but that credit was beyond the time limit provided under Section 16, subsection 4. So, out of the two arguments which were placed by the assessee before the Honorable Court, one of the argument was that the portal does not allow me to file the return without payment of due taxes, and this is going beyond the provisions of the law. So Honorable Madras High Court on this issue categorically said that since the portal does not allow, but the statute allows, that therefore this is something of a hindrance being provided, being created against the assessee. Therefore, this hindrance cannot act and deny the ITC to the assessee. So going forward, one of the arguments which can be taken and which is also an admitted aspect and in 31st GST Council meeting which was held on December 2018, that supposedly there is a ITC to be claimed of say 50 rupees. And at the same time, tax of 50 rupees also is to be deposited in cash. And the assessee is facing a financial crunch. And that's why he cannot file the return within the due limit prescribed under Section 16, subsection 4. So therefore, an argument can be placed that since the assessee was facing a financial crunch and he was not able to deposit the tax, he was not able to file the return within the due time provided under Section 16, subsection 4. So therefore, he was hindered or he was not allowed by the portal to claim the ITC without the payment of the taxes, which is going beyond the provisions of the law. And second, the assessee said that the entire infrastructure of GSTR 1, 2, and 3 has not been provided, because if that would have been provided, he would have claimed the ITC by filing GSTR 2. But since the claim of ITC is dependent on 3B and 3B is not allowed to be filed without payment of taxes, therefore he had a valid cause for not claiming the ITC within the time provided in the Section 16, subsection 4, and Honorable Madras High Court agreed to this and allowed the claim to the assessee. Now coming to another judgment of Rule 36, Sub-Rule 4, and this is a judgment by Honorable Apex Court, wherein SLP was filed by the department against the decision of Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of Vivo Mobile India Private Limited versus State of Uttar Pradesh, wherein Honorable Allahabad High Court had said that during the period of COVID, wherein there was a relaxation in under Rule 36(4) and cumulative ITC was to be seen for the period February to August 2020. So therefore, department was incorrect in calculating the eligibility of ITC as per Rule 36(4) on a month-on-month basis. What should have been done, that whatever ITC was available for the entire period of February to August 2020 should have been seen vis-a-vis compliance of Rule 36(4). Department preferred filed an SLP against that decision before the Honorable Apex Court, and Honorable Apex Court dismissed that SLP. Now, this was a judgment on Rule 36(4). Now coming to the judgments on Section 29. This pertains to cancellation of registration. And believe me that this Section 29 is one of those sections wherein flood of judgments have come in the last month. And what I have done, that I have taken out the causes on the basis of which the registration was cancelled and what was observed by the Honorable High Courts in those cases, because those causes are very common issues which we are coming and are facing in our day-to-day practice. And this lays down a guideline that what has to be done by the department while validly cancelling a registration, and what are the rights available to the assessee if his registration is cancelled in a manner which is not in accordance with the provisions of the statute. So the first decision by Honorable Delhi High Court in case of Hariom Metals, wherein a retrospective cancellation was made. So Honorable High Court Delhi High Court very categorically said that registration should be cancelled with retrospective effect only when the consequences are intended or warranted. Because when a registration is cancelled with a retrospective effect, it denies or restricts the ITC of a genuine recipient, wherein the returns have been validly filed by the supplier, but the officer cancels the registration from a retrospective effect. And cancelling the registration from a retrospective effect should be based on a valid reason and a speaking order. Now coming to the next decision again by Delhi High Court, Honorable Delhi High Court in case of in Sales Corporation. The only reason which was mentioned for cancellation of registration was non-compliance of any specified provision in the GST Act or rules made thereunder, as the case may be. This was the reason given in the cancellation order in the SCM. Honorable Delhi High Court held that the proceedings for cancellation of registration were invalid because there was no proper reasoning that why the registration was sought to be cancelled. In another case, before the Delhi High Court in case of Santram versus Delhi State GST, registration was cancelled merely on the basis of letter received from another authority, and that letter was also not provided along with the SCN. Therefore, the entire proceedings for cancellation of registration were held to be invalid. See, why these cases are important? Because even if supposedly a assessee is there who has purchased goods from a supplier and a ITC is sought to be denied to the recipient because the registration of the supplier has been cancelled. So in that case, the recipient has a right to ask for the documents or the reason on the basis of which the registration of supplier has been cancelled. And if that reason is not proper, the order is not proper, then these decisions can very validly be taken as a part of the submission that the registration has been wrongly cancelled. And to my opinion, supposedly I am a recipient and the registration of my supplier is cancelled, and ITC is being sought to be denied to me. I have a very legal right, first, to seek the copy of the order of the cancellation of registration. Second, the reason for cancellation of registration. And third, very importantly, to file an appeal against that cancellation order. Because Section 107 of CGST Act says that any person who is aggrieved by the order of the officer, adjudicating authority. So when it uses the term any person aggrieved by the order of the adjudicating authority, I am a person who is aggrieved by the order of the adjudicating authority in cancelling the registration of the supplier because I am a genuine recipient. So I should be given an opportunity to file a cross appeal against that order and to make my case that the cancellation has been made on an incorrect ground, or if at all it has been made, then to the extent it has been, it is covering my supplies, it is an incorrect order. So whenever an assessee being denied the credit, being a recipient of a supply wherein the registration of the supplier has been cancelled, make it a part of submission that the copy of the order, the relied upon documents, and the power to file an appeal against that order should be sought in the written submissions. Now, a decision by Honorable Gujarat High Court in case of Akshar Enterprises, wherein the only reason which was given on the show cause notice was a person does not conduct any business from the declared place of business. So the registration of the assessee was cancelled merely on the basis of this allegation without the reason proposing such cancellation being brought on record, without a reasoned show cause notice being given. Therefore, the cancellation of registration was held to be invalid. In another case, decision by Honorable Delhi High Court, the only reason which was given for cancellation of registration was that the assessee has not filed the return for a continuous period of 6 months. Honorable Delhi High Court said that this is not a sufficient ground to cancel the registration, that merely because the returns have not been filed for 6 months, the registration can be cancelled. There has to be an additional reason for cancellation of registration. Merely because 6 months have elapsed and registration is being sought to be cancelled automatically, it is not a valid exercise. Another case by Honorable Delhi High Court, judgment by Honorable Delhi High Court in case of Sri Shyam Metals versus Commissioner of Goods and Service Tax. The registration was cancelled, stating the reason. The DDGST, while it is letter dated 20/9/2022, issued, has informed that the party is not non-existent. So the officer received the letter, and on the basis of that letter and stating that letter without conducting an independent inquiry, without serving the copy of that notice, cancelled the registration of the assessee. Assessee challenged the cancellation, and the cancellation was held to be invalid. In another decision by Honorable Andhra Pradesh High Court, wherein the reason, the basis on which the registration was sought to be cancelled was filing nil returns continuously for a period of 6 months. This was the only reason given in the show cause notice. Honorable High Court said that this is not a valid reason, because merely filing nil returns for a period of 6 months is not a reason which has been provided under section 29 subsection 2 or any of the rules under the CGST rules. If at all the registration could have been cancelled, then it could have been cancelled because the returns have been filed incorrectly, but no such fact has been brought on record by the proper officer. In another case, cancellation was made because the SC stated that the cancellation is being made on the basis of letter forwarded by Assistant Commissioner, Okla Division GST, South Delhi Commissionerate. And the copy of that letter was also not provided. Again, the proceedings were held to be invalid. In another case by Honorable Calcutta High Court, wherein the application for revocation of cancellation of registration was rejected by the officer. The rejection for revocation of cancellation was on the basis of the fact that the inquiry was conducted and it was found that the documents on the basis of which registration was taken were forged documents. So therefore, Honorable Calcutta High Court said that the office has correctly rejected the application for revocation of cancellation of registration. In another case by Honorable Delhi High Court, same reason, that registration is being cancelled on the basis of letter number 26 received from DGJ regarding fraudulent purchase. No reasoning being given, no independent inquiry being made, no copy of such letter being made. The entire process of cancellation of registration was held to be invalid. In another decision by Honorable Delhi High Court, the registration was cancelled, citing the reason that registration has been obtained by means of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression. But none of the facts was brought on record that how it was treated to be taken by way of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression. Therefore, the cancellation proceedings were held to be invalid. These were the decisions on section 29. Now coming to the decisions on section 37. There are welcome two decisions wherein the petitioner in both the cases were allowed to rectify the mistakes which have crept while filing GSTR 1 for the year 2017-18. So one decision is by Honorable Bombay High Court, wherein they have followed their earlier decision given in the month of September 2023, and another decision is by Honorable Madras High Court, wherein they have followed their earlier decision in case of Sandai Camp. In both these decisions, the correction in GSTR 1 was allowed by the Honorable High Court. Section 50, Eicher Motors, a decision by Honorable Madras High Court. A very important decision wherein the assessee, see, this is a judgment which is covering the initial period of GST. The assessee had a carry forward credit of carry forward transitional credit of 34 CR, but he was not able to claim that credit because the mechanism for filing Tran 1 was not on the portal. So therefore, what the assessee did, he kept on depositing the amount in cash ledger to the extent the liability was there after deducting the Tran 1 credit. The Tran 1 form was made available and the assessee filed the Tran 1 form in October 17 and thereafter it revised it in December 2017 and filed all the returns in January 2018. And till that time, the respective liability for each of the taxes were being regularly deposited in the cash ledger. The department sought to levy the interest. The assessee challenged it before the High Court, and High Court, very interestingly, the assessee first brought it before the High Court, and High Court agreed to the submission. It said that GST 3B requires the details of the tax paid being mentioned. And when it refers to the details of tax paid, that means the payment of tax has been already been made. And when a assessee deposits the amount into the cash ledger, first it is received by the government and then it is being credited to the cash ledger of the assessee. So therefore, once it is being received by the government through the RBI and then the portal credits it to the cash ledger, therefore the government has got the custody of the amount. And once it has got the custody of the amount, it cannot be said that the tax has not been paid. And therefore, GST 3B refers to the term tax paid. And secondly, they also referred to section 54 that if the government says that we would allow you the refund from cash ledger. So when at one point of time they are saying that we will be allowing you the refund of the amount deposited in cash ledger. And at second point they are saying that they have not received the amount. So how can it be possible that without receiving the amount, the government can refund the amount to the taxpayer? So therefore, it is incorrect to say that tax has not been paid merely because it has been deposited in cash ledger. Once the amount is deposited in cash ledger, the tax is paid, and 3B only allows the set-off of the tax, reporting of the tax paid, and therefore no interest should be levied once the amount has been deposited in cash ledger. This judgment at first allows that depositing of the amount in cash ledger is payment of tax, and at the same time it distinguishes and holds that why the judgment of Honorable Jharkhand High Court, wherein they said that deposit of amount in cash ledger is not payment of tax, was an incorrect view. And secondly, it also says that why the decision by Honorable Telangana High Court, wherein they said that the interest has to be charged on gross amount, is also an incorrect view. So this judgment distinguishes both these two judgments, and then it says that why depositing of amount in cash ledger should be treated as payment of tax, and consequently interest should also not be levied from that date. Now coming to decisions of section 54 regarding refund. This is the first decision coming from Madras High Court in case of VSM Weaves India Private Limited, wherein they said that if a person has applied for a refund under zero rated exports made against LUT, and at the same time he also applies for refund under inverted duty structure, he is entitled to claim refund under both the heads. Merely claiming refund under LUT does not disentitle him from claiming the refund under inverted duty structure, because these are two separate processes. If the assessee is eligible in both these two cases, assessee can validly claim the refund both under exports under LUT, and secondly under inverted duty structure, provided there are two turnovers. First, export turnover, and second, he satisfies the condition for another part of the turnover, not for the same turnover, for being having a rate of tax on inputs more than the rate of tax on output. Now coming to the second decision by Honorable Calcutta High Court, wherein a show cause notice was issued. Show cause notice said that the refund is time barred and therefore refund would not be allowed. The assessee replied to the show cause notice, but when the order came, the order was citing another reason which was not part of the earlier show cause notice. So therefore, Honorable Calcutta High Court said that the decision is in violation of principle of natural justice, because the reason or the ground on which the refund is sought to be rejected is not forming part of the show cause notice, and it is coming directly in the grounds. Now there is another decision by Honorable Delhi High Court, wherein the annexure B, which was filed by the taxpayer, it was unsigned. So therefore, the refund was rejected, that the document which was submitted was not authenticated. Honorable Delhi High Court said that if the assessee is entitled to refund, the refund cannot be rejected on a technical or a procedural ground. If the authority feels that the documents have not been authenticated, he can call the assessee and get the documents authenticated, and then he has to give the assessee the refund to which he is entitled, and the refund cannot be rejected on merely procedural or technical grounds. A decision by Honorable Gujarat High Court, wherein they said that once an order has been passed by the High Court, it is a binding precedent for the officer to follow that decision. And if the assessee is not, if the officer is not following that decision, then it is a contempt of the court and going beyond the directions of the High Court, which were exercised under the provisions of Article 226 of the Constitution of India. Section 56. A decision by Honorable Rajasthan High Court, and a very important decision, because many times a refund application is filed and thereafter the department issues a deficiency memo or say a show cause notice, and then subsequently the assessee completes the deficiencies which have been pointed out in the show cause notice issued in the RFD 08. And supposedly it takes a time which is more than the prescribed time for passing of the refund application. In this case, the assessee sought interest on delayed grant of refund. Honorable Rajasthan High Court said that the application of refund which was filed was a deficient application and it was an incomplete application. It only became completed only when the notice was issued and assessee supplied the rest of the documents. So the time limitation for passing of the refund and calculation of interest would only start from the date when the completed application is received. If the application is not completed and it is completed subsequently, then the time limit would only start subsequently. It would not start from the date of application. Now coming to the decision under Section 65. That is audit by department. Section 65 provides that a draft audit report has to be issued to the assessee. A submission has to be sought from the assessee, and after going through those submission, upon receipt of those submission, a final audit report has to be issued. Now, in this case, the final audit report was issued without considering the submissions made by the assessee against a draft audit report. Therefore, the issuance of the audit report was quashed, and in all the cases wherein no such comments or no such submissions from the assessee are being sought against the draft audit report, in all those cases, a valid argument can be taken that the exercise of issuance of the final audit report is incorrect because it is being done in violation of the provisions of the rules and the statute. Because Rule 101 provides that a draft audit report has to be issued, then the submissions of the assessee has to be considered, and then the final audit report has to be issued. Now coming to Section 67, judgments on Section 67. Now this is one very important decision by the Honorable Delhi High Court, wherein the department had a reason to believe that there was a clandestine removal of a particular category of goods because the assessee, as per the department, was dealing in laminations. So they took the permission because they had reason to believe that there was a clandestine removal of goods without issuance of invoice of the various types of lamination products. But when they went there, they also found that the assessee was dealing in silver goods. And those silver goods were also being removed clandestinely. So they sought to seize and detain those goods, confiscate those goods, and the assessee challenged it before the Honorable Delhi High Court, and the Honorable Delhi High Court very categorically said that the permission or the reason to believe was based on the fact that the laminated products were being clandestinely removed. And even though silver is also a good because it is a movable asset, but it is not, these are not the goods for which the permission was taken for carrying out a search under Section 67. Now coming to the second decision by Honorable Bombay High Court, wherein the assessee had sought the copy of the documents under Section 67 subsection 5. Honorable Bombay High Court said that once assessee seeks the copy of the document, then the department is duty bound to provide those copy of the document, or if they want to deny, then there has to be a reasoned judgment that why the copy of the document is not being provided, but the application cannot be kept and cannot be kept undecided. Now these are two sets of judgment by Honorable Delhi High Court in case of Santosh Kumar Gupta. First, there were two searches against this particular assessee. First, by the state authority, and second, by the central authority after 1 month. So, the second search, which was carried out by central authority, CGST authority, the first decision in row number 33 and 34 pertains to the search being carried out by the CGST authorities. In the first decision, that is 158 taxman.com 194, the assessee challenged the reason to believe. Honorable Delhi High Court said that the department had the knowledge that the assessee is receiving inward supplies from a dealer who is non-existent and there are fake transactions being carried out. And when the reason to believe were gone through by the court, they were held to be a valid reason to believe. In the second point, which was challenged by the petitioner, was that once a search has been conducted by the state authorities, the central authorities cannot carry out simultaneous search after 1 month. Honorable Delhi High Court very categorically said that the provisions of Section 662B of the CGST Act does not preclude the central officers from conducting an inspection for concluding an ongoing investigation merely because a prior inspection or search was conducted by the DGST authorities. So merely because state GST authorities had carried out the search, it would not debar the central GST authorities from carrying out another search after a elapse of a certain time period. So this was the first set of decisions where against the search being carried out by the CGST authorities. And in the search which was carried out by CGST authorities, they deposited rupees 10 lakh from the assessee. Now in that, the assessee contended that the amount which was deposited through DRC 03 was deposited from the laptop which was being carried out by the visiting team of the CGST officer. The assessee filed the writ petition on 23rd of November 2022, which is within less than 10 days of the search being carried out. And refund application was also filed. Looking to the set of the circumstances, the Honorable Delhi High Court said that the amount was deposited under coercion and therefore it was directed to be refunded to the assessee. So three issues were raised. First, regarding the reason to believe, wherein it was held to be in compliance with Section 67. Second, parallel search by CGST authorities, which was again held to be valid. Third, amount deposited in the coercion on the same date of search from the laptop carried out by the visiting team, it was held to be deposited under stress and therefore allowed to be refunded. Now, in respect of the prior search, which was conducted by state GST authorities, the assessee had again went before the Delhi High Court. The first thing which was challenged by the assessee in the search which was carried out by the state GST authorities was that in INS 01, all the reasons were ticked except for claim of refund. So he challenged the very reason that the officers themselves were not aware of, which was the reason for which they came and carried out the search under Section 67. Honorable Delhi High Court said that even though all the reasons were ticked except for the refund, but when all those reasons were cross-checked with the documents available on record, there was a valid reason for all those reasons which were ticked in the INS 01. In the second challenge which was made by the assessee was that he was forced to deposit amount of rupees 40 lakh by the state GST authorities. Honorable Delhi High Court said that nowhere the assessee had admitted to deposit that 40 lakh rupees. The amount was deposited in late hours during the course of search and therefore it was deposited under coercion, and at the same time DRC 04 was also not issued by the GST authorities. Therefore, the amount which was deposited by the assessee of rupees 40 lakh was allowed to be refunded. So interestingly, same assessee, two different agencies. One is state GST, second is central GST. Both of them made the assessee to deposit 10 lakh rupees and 40 lakh rupees. And for both those amounts, assessee got refund of that 10 lakh and 40 lakh rupees. So somewhere down the line, these two cases, both for the assessee, gives them the right which they have during the course of search, and at the same time gives an indication to the department that what not has to be done during the course of search. Now coming to the decisions under section 73-74. Now in this case, before the Honorable Madras High Court, denial of ITC was made for non-payment of suppliers within 180 days. Now this was an entity which was registered in multiple states. So there was a consolidated financial statement. The entity submitted a certificate of a chartered accountant that out of the consolidated financial statements, these are the amount of creditors which pertains to this registration. The assessing officer, without going through the certificate, treated the entire amount of the trade payable for the pan-India, not only for the registration for which the assessment proceedings were being conducted, but for pan-India, he created a demand for non-payment of creditors within 180 days. So Honorable Madras High Court said that this is a clear case of non-application of mind by the officer and struck down the order. Another case, decision by Honorable Telangana High Court, wherein they said that Section 73 uses the word where it appears to the proper officer. And that appearance has to be based on some record or a reason or a document. And that reason, record, or document should be part of the relied upon document, or should be part of the notice being issued, that how it appeared to the proper officer that the tax has not been paid or short paid, or ITC has been wrongly availed or utilized, or refund has been erroneously granted. And if it is not coming out of the show cause notice properly, then that show cause notice is invalid and in violation of principle of natural justice. Now another case before Madras High Court, wherein interestingly what happened, that there were two firms of a assessee. One, say X firm, wherein he was the owner, and second, his sister concern, wherein supposedly say one of his relatives was owner. One was being assessed by the central GST authorities, and second was being assessed by the state GST authorities. Both of these firms purchased the goods from one of the supplier. Letter was received in both the firms that the supplier is non-existent. But central GST authorities allowed the claim of the assessee, treating that the supplier was genuine. But in another firm, the claim was disallowed by the state GST authorities, stating that the supplier firm was non-existent. So the assessee kept both those orders before the Honorable Madras High Court and said that how can same supplier be held to be genuine in case of one firm, and how can the same supplier be held to ingenuine in case of another firm? So therefore, looking to the facts of the case, Honorable Madras High Court remanded the matter back for the adjudication, considering the fact that in case of a sister concern, that the same supplier was held to be a genuine supplier. Section 75, judgments on Section 75, more particularly Section 75(4). Honorable Jharkhand High Court said that if only a summary SCN is being issued without a detailed SCN, then it is an invalid proceedings. Second, Honorable Kerala High Court said that order passed without considering the reply of the petitioner is violative of principle of natural justice. See, this is a very common phenomenon. This is a very common order. Nothing new which we have not read till now. But in my opinion, whenever we are framing a reply, the first submission which should be made by us should be that all the grounds of submission which have been made by us should be decided by the proper officer, and on along with citing, say, this judgment that this has been held by Honorable Kerala High Court, that if the submission made by the petitioner has not been considered, the order would be violative of principle of natural justice. So supposedly in case the officer does not follow it and passes a summary order without considering the written submission, the first ground of appeal before the appellate authority would be that we had relied upon this judgment. We had brought to the notice of the assessing officer that the entire submission has to be considered, but the order has been passed without referring to this judgment and without referring to the detailed submission made by us. This decision, now another decision by Honorable Madhya Pradesh High Court, wherein they said that even if a specific request has not been made by the petitioner and the officer intends to create an adverse decision, make an adverse decision against the petitioner, then he is duty bound to give the opportunity of being heard. This is a decision by Honorable Madhya Pradesh High Court. Now coming to the next decision by Honorable Madras High Court, non-consideration of reply to the SCN prejudices the petitioner and denies petitioner reasonable opportunity. Again, similar to the Kerala High Court, and in my opinion, these two decisions should be part of a written submission right at the outset of the submission. A decision by Honorable Calcutta High Court, in line with the decision by earlier by Madhya Pradesh High Court, that wherever adverse order is sought to be passed against the petitioner, then opportunity of being heard has to be given. Now coming to the next decision by Honorable Madras High Court, in which has been referred in row number 47, wherein only 2 hours were given to the assessee to appear before the officer. Looking to the facts of the case, it was said that it is an incorrect exercise in violation of principle of natural justice. Decision by Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of Eastern Machine Bricks, a very important decision, wherein the registration of the assessee was cancelled because he has filed an application. Against that application, the registration of the assessee was cancelled. Subsequently, a SCN was issued to him that was uploaded on the portal, and that SCN was issued on the basis of an investigation report, and that was also not provided to the assessee. Honorable Allahabad High Court said that once the registration of the assessee has been cancelled, he cannot be forced to check the portal on a regular basis, and merely uploading of the notice on the portal would not be deemed to be the sufficient compliance. So therefore, in cases wherein the registration has been cancelled, the order has, the show cause notice has to be served specifically, personally to the assessee, and mere uploading would not be sufficient. Now coming to another decision by Honorable Madras High Court, wherein opportunity of being heard was not given. So therefore, the decision, the proceedings were held to be in violation of principle of natural justice. Another decision by Honorable Chhattisgarh High Court in case of Tata Steel Limited, wherein while issuing the notice, the date of personal hearing, the time of personal hearing, and the venue were left blank. Honorable Chhattisgarh High Court said that leaving those relevant columns at blank is violation of provision of section 75(4) because opportunity of being heard has not been given. Therefore, the proceedings are violated in violation of section 75 and principle of natural justice. Another decision by Honorable Madras High Court in case of Bashir Bags, wherein the assessee was a small assessee. He engaged a consultant, and that consultant did not inform about the issuance of the notice and the order, and therefore the demand was created against the assessee. The assessee approached the jurisdictional high court, and Honorable Madras High Court, by creating exceptions, said that since the assessee is a small trader and he did not have a sufficient opportunity to put forth his case, therefore the matter was remanded back for fresh adjudication. Section 107, that is filing of appeal, and since in this case before Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of Dial for Pool, the appeal was rejected, stating that it has been filed beyond the limitation period. Honorable Allahabad High Court said that the provision uses the term communicated, and whenever an appeal is being rejected because it has been filed beyond the limitation period, it has to be specifically seen that when the order was communicated, and it should be made part of the order. Second decision is in case of Jitech Mold Dies, wherein the bank account of the assessee was attached, the assessee filed an appeal by depositing 10% of the outstanding dues. That appeal was filed and admitted. So therefore, the Honorable High Court said that once an appeal has been admitted, then the attachment of the bank account cannot continue because the demand is stayed. And once the demand is stayed, the attachment has to be released by the proper officer. Now coming to the next decision by Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court, wherein the appeal was rejected because it was filed manually. Honorable Punjab and Haryana High Court said that, referring to Section 107 and the allied rule, that the appeal can be filed electronically or otherwise. And since they have given an earlier decision, so following the precedent of earlier decision, they said that the appeal cannot be rejected on technical grounds. And once an appeal has been filed, although manually, it has to be heard, and opportunity of being heard has to be given to the taxpayer. Now coming to another decision of Section 129, wherein this is a decision by Honorable Apex Court in case of Vardhan Associate. Although Honorable Apex Court very categorically has said that this order cannot be treated as precedent because it has been issued under Article 142 of the Constitution and it is peculiar to the facts of the present case. So therefore, in this case, a vehicle was seized and assessee was asked to deposit 1 crore 8 lakh rupees. The assessee approached Honorable Apex Court and then Honorable Apex Court reduced the amount from 1 crore 8 lakhs to 81 lakh, but they specifically stated that this is an order under Article 142 and cannot be treated as precedent. And the vehicle was detained because there was expiry of e-way bill. Coming to the next decision by Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of Rawal Vasia Yan, wherein Part B of e-way bill was not filed. Honorable Allahabad High Court said that since no intent to evade has been proved, therefore penalty proceedings under Section 129 are not valid. Another decision by Allahabad High Court in case of Sri Sai Enterprise, wherein they said that once the e-way bill and invoice are there, and supposedly goods are being detained for some other ground, then the person whomsoever name is being mentioned on the invoice and e-way bill, he has to be treated as the owner. And they also refer to the circular of the department which was issued on 31st of December 2018. In another case by Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of Amil versus State of UP, wherein they said that once proper finding of the officer is there that the supplier is non-existent, the goods have not been dispatched from the location wherein the supplier is registered, there is an inquiry being conducted, there is no reply being made by the person from who had imported the goods, then in such case detention and proceedings and levy of penalty under Section 129 is proper because the department has discharged their burden and brought on record why they treated that the supplier is non-existent. Coming to the next decision, again by Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of non-filing of Part B, wherein they said that since the intent to evade has not been brought on record, therefore no levy of penalty under Section 129 merely for technical reasons. Next decision in case of SV Brothers, again by Allahabad High Court, wherein contrary to the earlier decision in case of Amil versus State of UP, in this decision they distinguished the decision and said that in that case the department has conducted entire inquiry, brought on record the facts regarding the supplier being non-existent. But in this case of SV Brothers, the department has not done any inquiry. They have merely stated that the registration of consignor has been cancelled, but that cancellation has also taken place after the delivery of after the issuance of the invoice, which is relevant in present case. Therefore, merely on the basis that the registration of the consignor has been cancelled, that also after the transaction, it cannot be a sufficient and the only ground on the basis of which the goods can be detained or seized and the penalty can be levied under Section 129. Another decision by Honorable Allahabad High Court in case of Hindustan Herbal Cosmetics, wherein there was error in writing the vehicle number. The vehicle number was 3552, but it was the bill showed the vehicle bearing number 3552 instead of 5332. So therefore, there was an error of 4 characters. and the circular only covered the error of 2 characters. They said again that no intent to evade has been brought on record, and this is only a technical error which has taken place. So therefore, proceedings under section 129 cannot be held to be a valid proceeding. So if we summarize section 129, intent to evade or proper inquiry has to be proved by the department and brought on record. Otherwise, merely because there was a technical error, writing the vehicle number or a part B of e-way not being filled, these cannot be the sole grounds for levy of penalty under section 129. Section 159, the mode of communication, wherein the assessee said that the notices were being uploaded on additional tab, not on the view notices tab. And since he was not aware that the notices were being uploaded on additional tab, therefore service should not be treated as a proper service. This reason was held to be a valid reason, and therefore it was treated as non-service of the notice. And that's why somewhere down the line, I feel that these types of decisions have forced the GST portal to bring all both the tabs of view notices and additional notice on the single screen. Section 161 pertains to rectification of order or the notice. First decision by Honorable Calcutta High Court said that section 161 does not allow the entire order to be rewritten or entire order to be reviewed. It has to be strictly restricted to mistake apparent on record. The second decision by Honorable Kerala High Court said that once an original order has been passed and no appeal has been filed against the original order, then rectification application, if at all filed and if at all decided, and if at all an appeal has been filed against the rectification application, it will only be limited to the facts and the circumstances of the rectification application. It will not reach to the original order. So therefore, it is very important to file the appeal against the original order. We cannot bypass the mechanism and file a rectification application. And if the application rejected, we cannot say that since we have filed the appeal against the rectified order, the original order should also be covered and decided in appeal. Next decision is wherein the taxpayer was allowed to rectify his GSTR1 because the taxpayer has quoted section 161. Last decision for today, wherein the assessee had claimed the credit under CGST and SGST instead of IGST. He went before the court and said that he had filed a rectification application because this is a mistake apparent from record. Honorable Kerala High Court directed the department to consider the rectification application and decided in accordance with the law. See, no decision has been made on merits. The only thing which has been said that the rectification application should be decided in accordance with the law. So these were all the crux of the judgment which have been reported in volume 158 by the Taxmann. And somewhere down the line, if you are able to make an entire repository of these judgments, these would be very helpful. And that's why I've tried to give these judgments on a section-wise basis compilation. So thank you, Taxmann, and thank you all the participants for giving me this opportunity to present my views on the recent judgments in GST. I would be happy to take the queries, although I've exceeded the time limit by 1 minute. But I would be happy to take the queries if any from the participants. There is one query by Mr. Gaurav. In our case, refund was allowed based on High Court order. Now the department has went for an appeal against the said order in Supreme Court. I have applied for refund against the said order. Now the judiciary are not sanctioning the refund, saying that the department has preferred an appeal. Gaurav, this is not a valid ground, because if the department has preferred an appeal before the Supreme Court, then either the Supreme Court should stay the operation of the order of the High Court, but merely filing an appeal before the Supreme Court is not a valid ground to reject the or to hold the refund application. A query from Rajeshji: if GST 3 for March 19 filed in December 19, then ITC to be reversed 16.4 or go in appeal. Rajeshji, this is a issue which is a burning issue in the present scenario, and I hope that somewhere down the line, amnesty scheme should be coming for 17, 18, 18, 19. But if it is not so, then there was genuine issues. Then in my opinion, it has to be contested because the matter is yet to be decided by Honorable Apex Court. Although an SLP has been admitted in case of section 16(4) by the Honorable Supreme Court. How to approach in another manner? In my opinion, the best way should be to follow the proper procedure and file a reply before the assessing officer, then go into the appeal and then before the tribunal. If at all a writ jurisdiction has to be exercised, then it has to be exercised with caution, because there might be a case wherein the Honorable High Court say that there is an alternative remedy and you have to come through proper channel. And at present, since the petition is already pending before the Honorable Apex Court, so if at all possible, in my opinion, the first approach should be to go through the proper channel, through the officer, then the appellate authority, and then the tribunal. There are no more queries for today's session, and I hand over the session back to the organizers. If there are queries in Q&A, there is one query by Navneet ji. If an intelligence-based action is started by, let's say, CGST department, later on SCN was issued by Anti-Vision Wing, it was issued by jurisdiction CGST office under section 73. Assessee is assigned to state GST, then whether such SCN will justify the jurisdictional issue. See, if there is an intelligence-based action, what CGST is doing, the Anti-Vision issues a notice, and that is decided by the jurisdictional officer. And going by the provision section 6, in my opinion, this is a valid course of proceedings and it cannot be challenged merely because the assessee is assigned to state, because intelligence-based action can be taken both by the center and the state. Taxpayer was asked to pay excessive refund amount under Rule 9610 and under Section 74 with interest and penalty. Taxpayer bought goods on advance authorization. Taxpayer applied for refund of tax only, but department denied refund on ground that tax is paid under Section 74 and cannot be refunded. A tax was paid under Section 74 blocked by Section 17. Can we get the refund? See, again, we have to see that Rule 9610, the payment of tax and of the goods being brought under advance authorization, there was ambiguity regarding the provision because it was changed multiple times. There were multiple circulars being issued. So at first, it has to be challenged that Section 74 has been incorrectly invoked. Secondly, what Section 17(5) denies is a tax paid under Section 74. In my opinion, whenever I am making the payment of refund back to the department along with interest, it is not payment of tax, because if we go through Section 73, tax not paid, tax short paid, ITC wrongly availed or utilized, and refund erroneously granted are separate categories. So whenever I am repaying the refund, it is not payment of tax, because had that been a payment of tax, then I would have been allowed to pay it from my ITC also. So if they are saying that it would not be allowed to be recredited, then in my opinion, it is not a claim of credit under Section 16, 17 or 18. It is something what I call that I have incorrectly claimed the refund which I received in cash, which I am depositing, and that amount is sought to be recredited. It is not tax or credit which is being sought to be recredited. Can we apply for refund post expiration of period of 2 years? It depends on facts of the case, that what is the relevant case. Because if it is a clear-cut case of tax, then in my opinion, 2 years period has to be seen. Although there is a judgment by Honorable Madras High Court wherein they said that the period of 2 years is a directory in nature, it is not mandatory in nature. Can rectification be filed with appeal order though past ex parte didn't consider the submission already made? See, the assessee was given an opportunity of being heard and the submissions were made. Now, if the submissions are on record and the appellate authority did not consider those submissions, in that case, rectification is only a method to cure something which does not require application of mind. But merely because submissions were there, but they were not considered, Now, in that case, we have to see for what issue the submission was made. Whether non-considered submission was relating to issue which was prima facie arithmetical in character, or it was in the nature of which does not require detailed application of mind. If the issue required a detailed application of mind, consideration of judgment, then in such case, rectification would not be the way to go. Further appeal before the tribunal, and since the tribunal has not been created as of now, a writ petition before the High Court can be considered. But if the matter is not such wherein it feels appropriate to approach the exercise the writ remedy, then in such case we can wait for the tribunal. But in my opinion, merely because it has the submissions have not been considered cannot be blatantly be a case wherein a rectification can be filed. It has to be seen on a case-to-case basis that whether the issue involved requires application of mind or detailed judgment to be made. Any remedy after 2 years, see, we have to for filing of refund. As I say, we can take benefit of the Madras High Court judgment, but yes, in my opinion, it's a tough call, tough nut to crack after 2 years to claim the refund. The last query, specified time is expired for filing appeal. ITC is denied on place of supply mistake in 1920. See, the judgment which are coming have said that 120 days time limit is a mandatory time limit, and unless until a grave case has been shown that this has resulted in not filing of appeal within the specified 120 days, only in exceptional cases the court would be considering. Likewise, I say can quote judgment of Honorable Rajasthan High Court, wherein they did not entertain any appeal if it was filed after 120 days, and there is a judgment of Honorable Supreme Court also, which was given in November 23, wherein they have said that any appeal filed after 120 days cannot be entertained by exercising the writ remedy, although in exceptional cases the high courts are giving the relaxation. So with this, I would like to conclude the query session.